In this video, I'm going to show you how to complete the Practica Musica activity Reading with Ledger Lines Lower. And for this example, we're going to be using the bass clef staff. So you'll open Practica Musica, and my screen is already open to the chapter selection under the Exploring Theory course. So I've selected Chapter 1, Notation of Pitch. Now I'm going to select the activity Reading with Ledger Lines, and then I'll select Open. This example shows that I'm still using upper ledgers, or I'm using the treble clef staff and the ledger notes are going above. So I would like to do lower ledgers, but I also will need to change my clef. And in this case, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to click on the clef box and hold your mouse key down, and then slide your mouse over to the bass F clef and select. And what that's done is it's now changed my example so that we're looking at ledger lines below the bass clef staff. So in this example, I need to start with a reference point, which is my first note, and to do that, I'm going to go back to the notes that I already recognize. I know that on the bass clef staff, the bottom line note is the note G. We learned the acronym Good Boys Deserve Fudge Always. So starting on G, I'm then going to say the musical alphabet backwards, alternating line and spaces to find my first note. The line note here is G. Below that is the space note F. Below F is the line note E. Below the note E is the space note D. And finally, my second ledger line note down is C. Now, we know that middle C on the bass clef staff would be above the staff. And so if I count octaves going from C, B, A, G, F, E, D, I see this space note is C. So that means that this version of C is going to be the third C down on my keyboard from middle C. So I start here with C, C, B, A, G, F, E, D, C. That's my second C. And then I count down to the next C, B, A, G, F, E, D, and C. This will be my first note. Then I see the note below that is the line note B. It's saying that my first note is not correct. Let's double click on that and see what it says. Let's try a new example. Okay, let's try this one. So, hopefully we're not having technical difficulties. I know that middle C is right up above. The space below that is B, so that makes my first note A. Let's see if I can find that again here. Middle C with my triangle, down to A. Then G, below that in the space, back up to A on the line, back down to the space note E, up to the space note G, down to the line note F, up to the line note A, back down to the line note F, up to the top line note A, all the way back down to our space note E, up to the neighbor note F, up to the neighbor note G, and back up to our top line note A. Okay, now we're back down again to our ledger lines, and let's see if we can get this example to work. So, we know this bottom line is G. Let's count our musical alphabet backwards. G, F, E, D, C, B to A. And in this case, this should be the lowest A that I have on my piano screen keyboard, so let's try that. Now, the note below A would be G, and it doesn't give us an option for G, so let's see if we can just play the next G above, and it gives it to us. Then we look that it goes back to A, back down to G, back up to our note B, to our note A, and then all the way back down. Let's double check this one with so many ledger lines. G, F, E, D, C, B, A, G, F, and E. I'm going to play the lowest E that I have available. And even though technically this is not the same E, I would play an E on the piano screen over here, they will still count it because I've identified the correct note name. And I'm sorry for the confusion. I wish that this was something in the program I could change. Our next note is up quite a bit, so let's start again with our reference note here, G, F, E, D, and we see that we are at C. Below C, we have the note B. Below that, we have the line note A. Back up to the space note B. And this is another example where if I could, I should be playing the note G below our lowest piano key A, but since I cannot, I'm going to have to jump up to the next lowest G. And then it shows that we come up to the next note above that, which should be A, and again, this will be the lowest key. Let's click New Example. This one goes even lower. So in this case, as you begin to play, you will just need to identify the note name and not worry about where you are playing necessarily on the piano keyboard. So let's take a look at the first one. Start with our reference note, which we know this bottom line to be G, F, E, D, C, B, A, G, F, E, D, all the way down to C. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The note in the space below 5 ledger lines is C. Low, low, low. This would be the lowest C on your piano. Then we see that we have 4 ledger lines and we're in the space. So we know that C, the next space note up from C would be E. Down to the line note above C, which would make it D. Back up to the space note E, back down to the line note D, back up to the space note E. Now we're going to jump up another space. You'll notice in these examples that I'm alternating a lot between spaces and lines, and so I remember that I have to skip the note in between. So if I just played the note E and the next note is the space note above E, I'll skip F and play the note G. Jump back down to the space note below E, and jump back down to the space note below that, which is C. I like to think of jumping between spaces and lines almost like you do when you were a young student in math and you were learning to count in groups, like groups of 2s. So you would go 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. That's the same idea. You're skipping something in between. So keep that in mind as another option for identifying these notes. We jump back up quite a bit, so let's again go to our reference note G, F, E, D, C, B, A, G to F, and come down. We're going to play our lower notes down here on the piano. F, go to the space below, which is E, back up to the line note F, back down to the space note E, again E, and then I skip up to the next space note G, and then I'm going to drop all the way down. And let's count the number of ledger lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you'll remember, the first note in our example is often the same as the last note in our example, and this note was the note C. So this one should be the same, and I'll play the lowest C on my piano keyboard. I'm going to quit this activity and give you time to work on it on your own. Again, remember to use all of the resources available to you as you identify these notes. If the notes that you are playing on the screen do not appear as a key option, remember that you can always just play the note name.